Please stand. Please be seated.
Thank you, Tegan. Morning, everyone. Thank you. No problem if you don't say good morning back. It's okay. Yes, first of all, Movember. It's gone quite quiet, other than a few sort of sprouting bushy growths around the campus, sort of few and far between. My cultivation has been quite a painful ordeal for me personally. I seem to have facial hair that defies gravity and wants to grow straight out and has a similar sort of texture to wire wool. So I think my boys, when I kiss them goodbye in the morning, essentially I just sort of pierce cheeks before sending them off to school. So it hasn't been fun, not really for anyone, and hopefully worthy of a few shekels, okay, or a few dollars. So we're on a bit of a fundraising mission, and we're into our final week here. There's some great tashes around campus, as I'm sure those of you who are taught by Mr. Hoggerwide will have noticed his mauve on his face. Mr. Dunbar, who's over in the junior school. We have Miss Powley as well, who is incapable of growing a moustache, but she's joined the cause and is raising funds nonetheless. Okay, so Miss Powley is on board as a Mo sister, and we have Bella is on board as a Mo sister as well, and we need to help Bella raise a few funds, and Mr. McLeod as well. Mr. Hurt has a tash, but I don't know that you're set up for gathering funds, but as I said, just a final push to try and raise some much needed funds to support men's health issues. Currently, the team is at $820. It would be fantastic if we could get to maybe 1,500 or possibly a couple of thousand, we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that, but all help would be very well received. And it's getting Christmassy. It's getting Christmassy. Those Christmas lights are up, and we've got the tree is about to go up in Rowan Tree Hall. The tree that I got yesterday is a little bit too wide for the actual base, so that'll be sorted, and we'll look at getting that decorated soon. And I'll have to send out just a little update on the details of the decoration down in the senior school, just because there's a few sort of fire protocols have been brought to my attention. So just want to make sure that we get that we're ticking boxes on that without spoiling the fun. But Christmas is around the corner. We are going to sing a couple of Christmas hymns today. The first one is "O Come All Ye Faithful." It is number 76 in your booklets. Many of you will have sung it before. There's a few lyrics in there that I think have either been misprinted or are not quite right. So if you know what they are, then continue through the line, and we shall do our very best. Okay, "O Come All Ye Faithful." I think we'll just go straight into it today, Miss Hanson. I think people know the tune.
down, please. You know, it's getting close when you're singing Christmas carols. The other day in chapel, Mr. Monro said we've only got 12 days of school left. And it sort of struck me because, like many of you, just kind of head down, plough through. And so that means we've only got 10 days. Is that right? 10 days of school?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah? Essentially 10 days of school.
2 weeks, 10 days.
Wow. So keep on going. We've just been talking about this morning. Now you can't switch on the news without feeling dragged down, right? Fortunately, so I listen to the news on the way in, and then early in the morning, and I listen to the news on the way out. Unfortunately, the CBC person in the afternoon, in the last few days, has been focusing on random acts of kindness and having people call in and tell her about just some of these incredibly kind things that people have been doing. And that is uplifting. So if you get a chance to source out some of those, please do. So I was thinking about many things I could talk to you about this morning, so I don't want to be too heavy at all. But the thought that you just had an assessment put a thought in my head, right? Because, as you know, I've been around schools for a long time. I taught for a very long time, and I know all about assessment, and I've literally had thousands of students go through with, at different times, worries and concerns about assessment. So I thought this morning I just want to put it in perspective a little bit for you. We all know that marks are important because marks are going to be a passport to make sure you've got the menu of choices that you want to have. But marks are not everything. Let's just remind ourselves of that. Marks are not everything because, you know, in a way, you've got to think of standardized tests, which is one of the reasons I'm so against standardized tests, is because standardized tests assume that everybody's learning style is standardized, and they're not. One of the things you learn as a teacher is that everybody learns differently, and I have to confess, you would not believe how relatively recent that awareness is. So I can go back to 20 years or so before I really switched on to learning differences, people's different ways of learning. And that was a revelation for me. And I'm going to give you one little story. So I had a young man in a grade 12 English class, and he sat in the front, and he happened to be my advisee, which is like in my FA. And you know, he's a really nice kid, a nice guy, and he sat in the front, and he was always smiling when I looked at him. But his marks were just, wow, you know, just it didn't come through on the tests and on the assignments. And I couldn't figure it out. I felt sorry for him. And then I finally clicked that he possibly had what's called an auditory processing slowness difficulty. And the reason I knew about that is because my own daughter, whom I love dearly, we've discovered that she had that in grade 10. And so after all those years of saying to her, like any sort of impatient parent, I just told you that, were you not listening? I felt so guilty. And then once we figured that out, she went on to do really well at university and beyond, and now she's a fabulous human being. So go back to the young man. I thought, let's get him tested. And of course he got tested, and sure enough, he did have an auditory processing slowness, which meant that he couldn't keep up. And I was teaching old school style. That's my mask. I was teaching that old school style, the sage on the stage, you know, the lecture, just what I'm doing right now. And so he couldn't keep up, but he didn't want to be rude, so he just kept smiling at me. And I felt so bad. And so anyway, he was in grade 12, so the tactic, he was young for his grade, and so we decided, why don't we get him to repeat grade 12? So he did. He repeated grade 12. And what we did was, I made sure that he knew that I was going to give him a page or two of notes about what I was talking about. I changed my teaching style a little bit so that everything I said I'd write up on the whiteboard, and all of a sudden, in that second year of grade 12, he took off. And the story ends well. It sounds a bit corny, but he now has a PhD. He's a doctor with a PhD, and so that single event about acknowledging his learning difference made all the difference. So my point really about assessment is that just keep reminding yourself, yeah, you've got to work hard, but it's the other pieces that ultimately will also become really important for you, right? Cultivate and nurture all those pieces that go to making you the kind of person you are. You know, are you reliable? Are you trustworthy? Are you a good friend? Do you follow through on commitments? You know, all those little features. Are you honest? And so on. The list of those character features, I could go on, but I just urge you to think about how important those are. Do you serve a cause greater than yourself? Right? Because you have to do that. That's what people are looking for out there in society. And I guarantee you, having watched thousands now of young people make their journeys into adulthood and into life, it's that character piece that ultimately will make the difference. The character piece that will make the difference. There's a great little piece that I read a while ago by a guy called John Green, who does all those crash course videos. Has anybody encountered any of those crash course videos? Yeah, yeah. So at one point he's asked about, is this going to be on the test? We've all either asked that question or been on the receiving end of it, or is this for marks, that kind of thing, right? And he said, and I give you this, you can find this, the test will measure, about the test he says, the test will measure whether you are informed, engaged, and a productive citizen of the world. And it will take place in schools and bars and hospitals and dorm rooms and in places of worship. You will be tested on first dates, in job interviews, while watching football, and while scrolling through your Twitter feed. The test will judge your ability to think about things other than celebrity marriages, whether you'll be easily persuaded by political rhetoric, and whether you'll be able to place your life and your community in a broader context. The test will last your entire life, and it will be comprised of the millions of decisions that, when taken together, will make your life yours. And everything will be on it. So, that's the test that you're ultimately preparing for. Yeah? It's your character. That's what I want to leave you with this morning. It is your character. It's the type of human being that you become, that you are, and that you become even more of. Because long after your transcript is forgotten, you will still be relying on that character to help you make the right decisions, the right choices, and to be the kind of person that people either want to be led by, or want to work with, or want to spend their lives with. So, I can't emphasize that enough. I sum it up in the character you build is yours forever. So long after these other things are gone, the character you build is yours forever. Thanks, everybody.
I've got a couple of things to say. I almost don't want to say them after. I'd rather just sort of leave you with that thought, but I think they're important just to share quickly. So just something around lunches. I know we've made that comment last week to try and make sure you tidy up the tables after you've had lunch, and great response in looking around in the lunches I've been at. I think that you guys have stepped up nicely for doing that. I also acknowledge that there's been a little bit of a delay sometimes to that lunching glide halt, which is supposed to start around 12:05. So we're looking at just solving those issues that are resulting in that. Try and get you in, sat down, eating at 12:05. We budgeted about 20 minutes for the senior school lunch, and many of you are going back up to get more, which is excellent. I believe now you can select a large portion or a small portion on your feedback forms when you're doing that, or your order forms. If you're going to be hungry and you usually go back for seconds or thirds, select a large portion, and what we're going to say is you can go back for seconds, but we just don't have time for people to come back for thirds, fourths, and that kind of thing. Okay, so lunch will go from 12:05 to 12:25. The other thing is raffle ticket appeal. If you can please, if you have any raffle tickets in your backpack still, can you hand those in to Maria as soon as possible? Okay, after chapel. And we're going to finish a little bit early today, but we are going to finish with hymn 81, which is Silent Night. Hymn 81, please stand.
Thanks everybody, have a good day.